Humans are storytellers. Stories are how we make sense of this wild world, this wild life we've been born into. From drawings on caves featuring hunters and wild animals, to stories of gods and goddesses, to even not touching the stove because it's hot and it'll burn, to the reason why things didn't work out is because I came on too strong. These stories we tell ourselves in some form of another, whether we realize it or not, they've been there our entire lives, and we often don't realize it. Because these stories, really, if you think about it, they give us this sense of continuity, this sense of certainty. They tell us that because this happens, this will result. And it happens in an instant because we have those stories integrated as part of our experience, our lived experience. And those stories, they drive every one of our decisions on a day-to-day basis, especially if we're not conscious of them. They're what's beneath the surface of the water, steering the iceberg when all you see is the top. These stories, we form them when we're young. We come into the world empty, not knowing a thing about how life works. And we need to start figuring it out. So we start gathering data points. We start observing life around us, especially our caregivers and the environments we're a part of, and how those dynamics shake out. And we start to craft these stories that we can have in our back pocket as we go through life. But so often, for many people, myself included, we live by a story that can do more harm than good. Because while it may have served us when we're young, we've outgrown it, just like a set of training wheels. When you're young, maybe you're a part of a household or environment where there's a lot of fighting, a lot of arguing, and you instinctually felt this pull to step in as the mediator, the peacekeeper, to appease everyone else's needs so the fighting would stop, the arguing would stop. And you don't realize that you're crafting this story, that your needs are below others. They're not worthy. And that you need to be submissive. You need to be a doormat in order to keep the peace. But more importantly, to keep love around. In this story, you carry it with you into your day-to-day life, into when you're an adult. And when you say yes, when you want to say no. Because that's how you keep love around. That's all you know. These stories, even if they're from the past, they're continuous. That's what a story is. It gives us continuity, it gives us certainty. So So even if it's from the past, it inches forward into the present right along with us, tucked into our back pocket. If you create, if you live by a story in which, just like when you're a kid, you're living from a place of survival, of fear, you carry that story going forward and you're just living out of fear, out of survival, out of a what if. Because life, it just is. When you start to get nervous or anxious or afraid, it's because you're projecting this story, this lens that you see the world through, onto life, onto your day to day experiences, onto every moment. Everything has a story that you project onto it because it's been warped or impacted by a data point you collected when you were young. Something as simple as a girl rejecting you, which I have plenty of experience in. Plenty of experience in. Something as simple as a girl or a crush rejecting you, and you believe it's your fault. You believe, and true story, I've talked about this before, it's because you're not enough in certain ways. I'm not attractive enough, not flirty enough, not confident enough, I wasn't tall enough. I'm not enough. That's the story I live by for 20 some years. Just projecting onto everything. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I'm unworthy of love. I'm unworthy, period. It could be something like an internship I didn't get. Oh gosh, I wasn't prepared enough. I'm not smart enough. It's because I didn't go to an Ivy or something. To that crush situation I mentioned. Because all that experience is, it's just another data point confirming the same story. When things don't work out, it's because I'm enough. I'm inadequate. I'm missing something in some way. Darn. Happens again. The crazy thing is, which I definitely didn't realize at the time, is that you seek this familiarity of the story. You want to feel comfortable, familiar. That's what you're wired to. As a human being, you are wired for safety and familiarity. And you seek out a romantic interest who's familiar, who's going to perpetuate, to continue the storyline that I'm unworthy. And also, let me just say it, it takes two to tango, and so often your stories are just enabling one another. Wild. And that's why you hear people who have a type, or you have those people in your life who just seem to fall into the same sort of relationship dynamic time and time again, or maybe they're a serial dater, they're always in a relationship with somebody as soon as they left one. There's a story there, whether they realize it or not. And that's the thing, is that this story, it kept us safe in certain ways, and in certain ways there is use to having a story. If you go into the wild and you see a lion, you probably shouldn't try to aggravate it. But when it comes to telling your crush you like them, or not applying for that internship or that job, or pursuing your dreams, that's when the story is blocking you, impeding you in life. And maybe that's how you feel now. You feel like there's just this sort of resistance in life. You're constantly treading water, where the moment you come up, your head goes back down. Underwater, that is. And maybe, just maybe, it's because you're fighting yourself. You're living a story that really isn't your own. Because this story that you've told yourself, whether it's I'm unworthy, or I don't deserve this, or whatever it may be, it's not real. Because when you came into this world, you weren't saying any of that. You didn't believe any of that. But it's only after this story was created through the layers of conditioning that were piled on you by parents, teachers, peers, or whatever, that you started to believe this story, which you've held on to for so long. A story that continues to drive your life without even realizing it. Definitely did mine. Definitely did mine. And it's not until you understand this story, where it came from, how it was formed, that you're able to move forward in life with fluidity, with grace, with natural flow. So as they say, or as Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, drive your life, call it fate. Something along those lines. This story, this unconscious, this shadow, you might also hear thrown around. Shadow is, your shadow self. Until you bring all of this to the surface, until you bring your shadow to the light, until you make the unconscious conscious, you're not living your own life. You're constantly just reacting to things, not responding. Just like when you put your finger on a hot stove, you instantly pull it back without even having to think about it. It's just a reaction, a survival reaction instinct. And that's how you go through your life, just constantly being triggered and reacting to everything. All of these past data points that make a story you've carried until now. You're living in the past, not in the present. And it's only when we understand this story, when we bring the shadow into the light, that we're able to move forward. And writing is how we're able to do that. I mean, from this very first journal to, whatever number this is and everything in between, writing is how I've been able to do this, and I believe is one of, if not the most effective way to go about this. Because writing is accessible to you anytime, anywhere. It doesn't take anything fancy. It literally just takes, a paper and some pen, and of course patience, time, and commitment, and courage. which sounds weird to say. You need courage to write? Well, if you're writing for transformation, you definitely do. Because ultimately, we're writing to bring all of these parts of ourselves that are associated with pain, with hurt, a feeling unloved, and everything else that you've tucked away. We're writing to bring those onto the page, to bring those into forefront. And that's a painful process because those data points, those experiences, they're laced with pain. And just like a thorn that you have to pull out, it's going to hurt when you do. But it's necessary for healing to occur. Because when we write, when we start to connect with this story, this deep, dark part of ourselves that we've tucked away, we start to heal. Because we're not rejecting ourselves, we're not dumping our baggage, our story into a river and just hoping we never see it again. We're integrating it. We're showing it the love, the kindness, the compassion it needed when it was a kid. You needed when you were a kid. And moving forward as one. Because when you realize you are one with everything, life seems to fall into place. It seems to unfold without you even having to really try, without you having to row your boat. Things just flow when you're in harmony with what is and when you're one. And that's really been the story of my own life the past few years, is that by understanding my own story, I've been able to see it clearly, see what's true, what's not, and to move forward in my life without the training wheels. Instead, with this, let's call it reckless abandon or faith in life and what'll unfold. Because I no longer have this story that is blocking me from any of that. And my life is totally transformed as a result of that. As a result of just writing every day, sometimes multiple times a day, and just showing up for myself in that way. So that's what it really boils down to. Writing is how we show up for ourselves. If we really sit and listen to the stories we have to tell, we might realize that beneath all that, there's a truth that we haven't been able to see all this time. So, with that, I'm grateful for you. I appreciate you and hope to talk soon.